Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you're enjoying the content, please drop us up, drop a like, and let us know your thoughts below in the comments. Also, please consider supporting our podcast via the link below. It really helps us out. Chris, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, were you on when we were doing questions from the last guests?
Yes.
All right, so you got another one.
All right. I got a good one for this time, too.
Oh, good. If you look back on your career success, what would be the magic ingredient that helped you stand out amongst your peers?
Interesting question. Honestly, I think it is more of it's more of a character answer than a technical answer. So there's an aspect to being good at what you do, which is an underlying aspect of it. But I think I've always been willing to try things that sound a little bit crazy, and some of those stick, right? And some of them turned out to not be crazy, right? And they turned out to be really cool. And I think a lot of people, I think it's been my willingness to try things and then also to admit when I do or don't know something for sure. So I think there's a lot of people who, especially in the scientific field, will go, well, we know that, or well, I know that, but they don't sort of probe the underlying reason why. So, but yeah, I think it's that. I think it's the willingness to try things that are a little bit crazy and see if they stick. And if they don't, most of them don't, but every once in a while I've had one stick, and that's become a calling card.
That's a good answer. And you gave me two segues. One is when to admit that you're wrong, which Chris Cuomo did not do one time in his debate with Dave Smith. And the other one is a little bit crazy. Let's go with Cuomo first. I feel like the Cuomo Dave Smith debate first. I feel like that is. So for those who are listening that haven't watched it, I highly recommend you go watch it. It was on Patrick Bet-David's podcast called Valuetainment. Dave Smith debated Chris Cuomo about what was going on during COVID. And for those also listening who don't know, Chris Cuomo had at the time had, I think, the top show at CNN, although I don't, Don Lemon was still there. One of the top shows at CNN at the time. And Dave Smith was doing his podcast called Part of the Problem, in which basically about 3 times a week or however often he would take clips from various news outlets and be like, that's not right, and here's why. And so this debate was, they sat down with clips and tried to hash it out. And
the clips were just devastating. I mean, they were devastating.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me your thoughts, because this would be one that maybe when I don't have a guest, I'll do kind of a solo episode on my thoughts on this. So take it from here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fascinating because it does touch on stuff we've touched on before, in that there's a different media ecosystem that seems to be developing, where you can do these quick lookups and these quick clips and these supercuts of things and bring them right to people. And I think that, I don't know if it was just a lot harder before or it wasn't done, but you're now in a scenario which I think PBD and Dave Smith leveraged to their advantage, where you can just bring a clip that says, you said this, why'd you say it? Or if they say, I never said that, and you go, I'm really glad you said that right now, because here's you saying it for 5 minutes in a supercut, right? And then you're just stuck in this scenario where I think I just don't think Cuomo knew what to do. I think he was trying to pivot away from it, but there's just no pivoting away from a video of you saying the thing.
Yeah,
right? I mean, the one of him giving Joe Rogan, a bunch of flack about ivermectin, and now he's on ivermectin, and I don't know how you square that circle, and I don't think he knew how to square it either, other than just to say there's no problem here.
Well, I think, what was the reason he gave? Oh, I was talking about the veterinary one specifically. And it's like, No, you weren't. And
No, you
everybody
weren't.
and with the live crowd as well, everyone had that exact reaction that we both just had. And I thought that was very interesting. I listened to one of Dave Smith's shows recently in which he was talking about that and he kind of gave he said Cuomo gave him like Jim Bro vibes that like wasn't like he didn't know like what he was not what he was doing, but like it wasn't the somebody asked him if he felt he had like the weasel vibes, like you don't like want to be around that person. He's like, no, he
Yeah.
had Jim Bro vibes, but like he wasn't supposed to be on like he just happened to be from that family, so he got the job on the news. And I thought that that was also very interesting because he tried to weasel his way out of a lot of what was on there, but it was not even very sophisticated in what he was doing. It was like there's ways to spin stuff. It was like I could have spun that better for you, and I don't even agree with you. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so this to like take a step back and go to media more broadly, it's just interesting that the format of media is of the news is clearly has been clearly shown the last 4 years specifically, but probably going back to I don't know when did maybe 4 to 8 years, something like that. But the two never interface really. And
Hmm.
this was the first time that I had really seen it interface like like that. And it
Yeah.
was so clearly demonstrated that to sit down and think things through, it takes a certain level. You have to have done research. You can't just have somebody put a teleprompter on the thing. Like you're not, there's no one coming to save you when you're sitting down and it's just a discussion for 2 hours or whatever the case is, and you can just Google things like quickly. Um, and I feel like a lot of the kind of people on TV, Tucker being the exception, I think, are getting found out for that. I
Yeah.
don't, yeah,
I do think you're right. And I think it's funny. Uh I got told this at work the other day because we were doing like a Zoom call.
yeah,
And I got told after the call that I needed to be better about my introduction because we're doing like, we're doing the like Zoom squares. We
yeah,
go,
yeah.
okay, let's do a quick round of introductions. I'm Chris Nirschl. I'm a whatever. I worked here, blah, 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 blah. And I hate that. I hate it so much. And so
It's
I
the
usually
worst.
just go, I'm Chris, I'm an immunologist. The end. Like that's it. Like that's I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
stop. And then so I got told, well, the reason that the person who told me this said that I had to be better about it was how are they going to know if you know what you're talking about? And so I asked, I mean, don't you know 2 minutes in? Like when you're talking to somebody, don't you haven't you figured it out after 2 minutes of talking to them
Hmm.
whether they really know their stuff or they're not? And like I think I think everybody kind of has that realization of like, okay, this is not somebody who has like details. This is somebody who's got, you know, uh, kind of quick clips level of understanding, not in depth knowledge on a subject.
Yeah.
And I think the old media ecosystem of a 30-second soundbite, there were a lot of people who sounded good so long as you didn't kind of push and see where you could find a flaw in the logic and go, whoa, 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 wait a second. Right. Like I think, like you said, at one point, Chris Cuomo says he was talking about the interviews with his brother, right? So he's got
Hmm.
Andrew Cuomo, who was the governor at the time.
Yep. Governor of New York. Yeah. He was on TV every day doing the graphs and whatever
Right.
else.
So he's there with his brother and he's doing like a comedy routine. And sometimes he's like asking him stuff and sometimes he's doing a weird comedy routine. But then in the retrospect, right, like in this interview with Dave Smith, basically he brings up like, well, why didn't you ask your brother about all the people going into nursing homes? Like you're the journalist, you're supposed to hold people to account, right? Like New York had a huge death count
Hmm.
specifically because they were sending COVID positive patients back into old folks' homes, right? Which is, I think we can all agree, is still not a great plan. Like even today, it's probably not the move. Um, but Chris Cuomo's response was, "Well, nobody took me seriously. I wasn't really doing the news." Right? You're like, well, like, and again, it's that sort of thing where if you had a guest who was just going to let you get away with whatever you said, that would be 1 second and everybody go, oh, okay. Like the friendly audience would go, yep, there you go. But having somebody on stage go, whoa, 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 wait a second. You're not doing new. Like, what were you doing? Was it a comedy show? Was it a opera? Like, what were you doing then?
Yeah.
To like, so that I think that punches holes in those kind of sound bites when you can just have somebody go, what did you just say?
Yeah.
Like, flesh that out.
But it's also nuts to me that it only takes one question most of the time, one follow-up. That's it.
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
to me, anyways, when I'm listening to that, I'm like, really? You haven't thought about, like, you haven't, me, if I'm Chris Cuomo, I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't say, oh, I wasn't doing the news because the follow-up then is, what were you doing? And if I do say that, I should probably have an answer.
Yep.
I should have thought about it because it's one follow-up. It's like one secondary, like, question down. It's like, so you were doing
Yeah.
all this and you don't know what you're doing, but then also, okay, fine, fair enough, right? Sometimes people do things that they don't think about or they don't self-reflect on
Sure.
stuff, right? Self-reflection is hard.
Mhm.
But then you're supposed to be the person that everyone trusts when you say don't do ivermectin because it's horse-based. But like,
Right.
but when that happens, you are doing the news. So
Right.
which one? So which one is it?
And how do we
So
know?
right, exactly. So how do we know? So it's if you're not doing the news, fine, no worries. You could do your comedy show on CNN, no problem. Uh, but then don't turn around and then say, well, now I am like without there is no distinction, I guess is what I'm saying, right? Because people
Right.
say there's nothing wrong with I'm not doing the news. Now I am doing the news as long as you tell people. But
Yeah.
there was no distinction there. And so when pushed even just a little bit, all of a sudden it just falls apart because he was trying to have his cake and eat it too. And it doesn't work like that, right? If you're doesn't CNN have news as its like acronym?
Isn't it the CNN News Network or something?
Cable
What is
News
CNN?
Network. Yeah,
Yeah.
Cable News Network. So anyways, you can networks can be named, not what they're doing. That's but the point being is like,
See the Learning Channel.
well, yeah. Um, but
TLC.
yeah, but the point being is like one follow-up and it falls apart and you're the person on TV and you haven't like you're supposed to be that guy, so I would expect you to have thought about that.
Hmm.
If you're on TV and you're supposed to be doing journalism or the news, or even if you're not doing the news, you work news adjacent, and then so you should think about that. Like you're the guy that people are watching and listening to for whatever.
Yeah.
And so then that falls apart. And the reason why that's different from somebody like Rogan or Dave Smith or whoever is because those people will tell you, to your point earlier, oh, yeah, I got that wrong. And here's why.
Hmm.
Or I'm just trying to figure it out with all of you. I'm just trying to ask questions. I'm just trying to do this. I'm just trying to do that. And they don't, if they aren't sure, they tell you that they're not sure.
Yep.
And so that's why it's different because Cuomo would be like, yes, this is exactly right.
Yeah.
Ivermectin is horse based. It's like,
Right.
uh, anyways.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I mean, like you said, it's interesting to watch that. Like, I feel like you said, those two media forms have been next to each other for a while, and the internet space has just been slowly eating away at the like traditional media space. And I do think there's going to be an audience, in sort of the boomer age bracket who are going to keep watching TV news at night, but they're going to age out eventually. And that's going to be the end of it. Right. And there is, there's some danger to AI based deep fakes or that kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
that's definitely going to be something we're going to have to grapple with. But I think we already run into them. They're just not as sophisticated, right? It's with the wrong camera angle, or we cut the video at a weird time, or right, like it's that kind of stuff where you're like, this wasn't real, but we all kind of ran with it.
Yeah.
But like I've seen a number of videos of like politicians under sniper fire, and then it turns out like they weren't. I was like, so did you guys just like crouch and run? Like, is that like that you just faked it, right? That's what you did? Okay, cool, cool. But like
Yeah.
there's been fake stuff for a while. It's not new.
No, it's not for sure. And that's, I think we mentioned that last time, like the danger of having no institutional trust in anything is that all of a sudden it becomes the Wild West. And so
Yeah.
people are going to have to do lots of research. But the other thing that I find very interesting about these two mediums sitting next to each other is like all of a sudden you can have somebody, Dave Smith, who is a comedian, but he's very well read and very well researched. And all of a sudden he can start to go toe to toe with, right? He tells a story about
Hmm.
how he went into his pediatrician's office for his kid, and they were trying to convince him that his kid needed to get the COVID vaccine, and he was rattling off all these facts and figures and all this other stuff, and the doctor didn't know one way or
Yeah.
the other. So the concept of, and we've talked about this before with education, in terms of like, okay, you have a degree, what's your degree mean? Can somebody who's read more on it than you can actually be more of an expert than somebody who has a degree in that field? And that is where like the institutional trust, right? To your point about introductions, I'm Chris and I'm
Hmm.
an immunologist. Well, I'm Eric and I have a PhD from wherever in immunology, but I know less than Chris, the immunologist, right? So
Yeah.
it goes into the kind of Wild West, and I don't know. It's interesting. I think I said it's exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking, right? So you got deep fakes and then no rules, and people just have to have kind of the, I don't know, good faith, like that. I don't know, like the Rogan vibe is going to maintain its legitimacy and relevancy
Hmm.
because everyone knows he's acting in good faith.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
And like you
and
said, doesn't mean he doesn't get stuff wrong.
no, of
He
course, but
just,
people can sniff it out basically. And I think people are finally starting to sniff it out, right? Because you can't fake. You can fake 5 minutes. You can fake a 30-second clip. You can fake a
hmm
2 minute segment. You can't fake 3 hour conversations with no editing 3 times a week, or however an hour, even like an hour conversation once a week that's not edited like what I do.
Yeah.
Like at some point, if I wasn't having these discussions in good faith or these interviews in good faith, I would have been found out by somebody.
Hmm.
But I am, so I don't have anything to worry about. Um, but back to the Cuomo Dave Smith debate. I don't. What was some of the, for me, the one moment that stuck out was they played the clip of everybody demonizing the people that weren't vaccinated, and
Ah,
that
yeah.
made me very unhappy because I don't know if I said this on the podcast before. Mm, yeah, I'll say it. I think I said it with you last time, but I regret getting it
Hmm.
because of the soccer stuff and whatever else, the hard stuff. But that made me very, very like I didn't remember how bad it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were, a lot of places were going full vaccine passport, right?
Hmm.
They were, and requiring documentation to go places, which always, I mean, the, they brought it up in this interview, but it always was sort of a like, again, it was a weird logical hole that I'll do my best to sort of steel man, but from its front, like from its face, the idea that you have to get a vaccine to protect me who had the vaccine so that you can't give it to me is confusing,
Yep.
right? Like, because it was always, well, if it works, then why doesn't it protect me? And if it doesn't work, then why do you have to get it? Right? Like, that was always like assuming a scenario where I got vaccinated and you didn't. And then it was like, right, because that was the rationale of the vaccine passport,
Hmm.
was then you could come into my space and give it to me, the guy who done everything right. But the question was always, well, how, if I'm not protected, how is giving you this vaccine going to protect me? It's like it's a logical inconsistency,
Well,
right?
do you remember what happened was they said it was going to be 100% effective, and then when it was very obviously not 100% effective, then that was the next step. Well, it was like,
Yeah.
well, if it's not 100% effective for me, then you should also get it. So the effectiveness, like if we're both vaccinated, then the effectiveness is higher than if you don't have it. Like
Yes.
that was what it was. But even
Yeah.
then, it's like already it's falling apart, right? Like we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
one or two follow-up questions in, and already it's falling apart.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I think, I mean, again, to be fair to the argument, that's the argument for a measles vaccine, right? Is
Hmm.
that it's 90 something percent, or maybe it's high 80s% effective. But if you have enough protection, the transmission never hits kind of critical mass,
Yeah.
right? And that, so like there is a scenario where that math kind of works out from a modeling perspective of like it doesn't lead to measles taking over the country in a pandemic way. Um, but that's not what we were dealing with here,
Yeah.
right? Like it wasn't that sort of for the people whom the measles vaccine is protective of, they're done, right? Like they are protected.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of having a high enough, sort of firewall kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's not where we were. And I mean, I'll say I got it wrong early on because I realized in retrospect, my mistake was not realizing that a lot of the data that was coming out was snapshot in time kind of stuff. Right. So like it was accurate as of today, but I think now, right, like I would, so for like, for example, now, like when people ask, should I take a booster? My general answer is if they're old and you really want like 1 to 3 months of protection, then yeah, sure. Right. But like it's a hard game to play because what 1 to 3 months do you want? I don't, if I knew when I was going to run into COVID, then I just wouldn't do that. I
Yeah,
wouldn't go there and do
it's
right
like, hey,
like
I'll take the booster and go lick all the stop signs this today.
right. So like you're sort of playing a statistical game anyway, right? But that if you were, I think you have pretty good short-term protection against symptomatic COVID,
Hmm.
but it's a different thing than permanent protection. But so like when those data were first coming out, people were saying, it's 99% effective. It was when you measured it at a 3-week time point and did some kind of wonky things with the control groups, right? Like you did trying to remember. There's this thing called the immortal time bias in clinical trials. And basically, what it means is that if you have two scenarios, so in this case, right, the two scenarios would be vaccinated and unvaccinated, right? But you have to choose when the person who got vaccinated switches from the unvaccinated category to the vaccinated category, right? So, like, is it typically it's the date you got dosed?
Hmm.
In this case, they said it was like 2 weeks after your last dose, right?
Yeah.
So that meant you had built 2 weeks of immortal time into the vaccinated group, right? Because by definition, anybody who got COVID in those first 2 weeks was unvaccinated,
Yeah.
right? So you had artificially built immortal time into the trial.
And then if you did happen to get it during that time, then you also had natural immunity afterwards. So it's
Yeah,
like that's skewed as well.
right. So yeah, but I think it kind of touching back on our earlier stuff is doing some sort of self-reflection is important so that you don't make the same mistake again.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's how you go, okay, this was the hole in my logic. I now know that was a blind spot. How do I check it going forward?
Yeah. And then also, for me at least, that debate and then it coming out, I think I don't remember where or when Fauci said it recently. I think it was he was testifying in front of Congress. It's like, oh yeah, we just made up the 6 feet social distancing rule. It's like that
Yeah.
wasn't based on anything. It's like, well, there's whatever remnants of like those ridiculous things that were happening, like that's the final nail in the coffin as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. Like I just like you hear that and it's just so infuriating. Like the amount of people that lost their businesses because they shut down small businesses, but then Walmart was still open or like whatever. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you guys just ruined so many lives with like stuff that you guys just made up.
Yeah.
Um, and so back to like the institutional trust thing, it's like, well, here
Yeah.
we are.
Well, and
Here
if
we
you in the
are.
middle of that had what, like, imagine in the middle of all of it, you'd gone, I think this rule's made up. Like, you would have been given hell. No, it's
Well,
not
yeah.
made up. It's right. Like, I think you guys pulled this one out of nowhere. No, no,
Hmm.
no. It's all, everybody's saying it.
Yeah. Do you have any other moments from the debate that stuck out to you?
Um, I mean, I think just sort of a general tone of like being unwilling to apologize and unwilling to like reflect in any way was fascinating to me. Like, I don't think I
Mhm.
could do that for an hour.
3.
Right? Like I just don't know that I could do it and be like, no, or to say, I mean, this actually, I take that back. This is one point where I feel like Dave Smith or PBD probably could have driven it home a little bit more. Was one of his defenses was, I think we need a like one of Cuomo's defenses was, I think we need a reckoning and we need to like do a a panel and like look into this stuff. And I think the correct like response to that was, that's what we're trying to do right now. You just won't let us. Right? Like, why would any of the people involved allow you to do this retrospective if you won't even do it? Right? Like it's fascinating to go, or like his other defense was, what difference does it make? Well, what difference does it make? It makes a difference when we're going to do this again. When we do this song and dance again, we learn something from it. We need to do the autopsy,
Yeah.
right? And that involves, some sort of comeuppance here, at least some sort of like agreement of how what things worked, what things didn't work, that kind of thing, right? I like
Yeah.
even the like, yeah, I think that's that. It was a refusal to do the. It was the same kind of like two-step, right? Of going, we need an autopsy, we need to figure out what worked, and then refusing to actually do it. Where somebody went, whoa, that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
But it was, I will say, it was at some points hard to listen to. Like it was
It got rough. Yeah.
infuriating,
Yeah.
but like he just had no defense. It was an hour plus of just a beatdown.
It was 3 hours.
It's yeah,
Yeah.
like it was a lot. It was a lot of just taking him apart.
Yeah. Um, yeah. All right. People listening to this, if you haven't listened to it, go at least watch the first like 15, 20 minutes. You'll get an idea for the rest of it, but it's very eye-opening, I think,
Hmm.
to say the least. So definitely go watch it. Um, well, okay, let's move on. Think we've beat that dead horse like Dave beat Cuomo. And um, so at the time of recording, presidential debate, the first one is tomorrow. So when this is released, it will have already happened. However, we are going to make some predictions. So in the comments, please let us know the wrong ones because I'm not going to go back and watch this. Um, what do you think is going to happen? I know the obvious joke is like take a drink every time Biden can't like stops talking or take a drink every time Trump says China or
Uh-huh.
any sort of those are the obvious ones. But from a more serious standpoint, before we get into like, yeah, we'll give you guys a drinking game at the end of this segment.
Yes, we've
Um,
got some good rules.
but on a more serious note, what do you think is gonna happen? From my perspective, I really have no idea what Biden is gonna do, right? We've seen clips of him just absolutely just freezing up recently or like wandering off and doing all these things. Um, Trump has been making the rounds on various podcasts and things of that nature. He still seems like him, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, Shane Gillis had a funny bit in his special. It's like Trump's whole thing is to get in people's heads, and that's how he wins debates. But like, that's how Joe beat him. He's like, "Good luck getting in Joe's head, man. Joe's not in there." Um, so I don't like. What do you think is what's your sense as to what's going to happen tomorrow night?
I don't know. I mean, that's it. It could go any given direction. Like that, nothing's off the table, including bringing in a chair or a ladder and it turning into WWE. Like I think that's possible. But I think from a top level perspective, it's going to be interesting to see whether I predict we're gonna spend a bunch of time on character attacks and almost no time on policy. It's gonna be 90 minutes of he's a felon, he's an idiot, he's a bad person, he's a terrible guy, and there's just gonna be nothing of depth for 90 minutes. Like, and I don't know if that's a reflection of where we're at, or that's because it's on CNN, or right. Like, I would much rather have a Rogan with all three of them kind of thing, or throw RFK in the mix, right? I would love to have Rogan for 3 hours
Or
with three
PBD.
presidential days, or PBD. Yeah, like I would love to have somebody who's going to talk and not sort of do these weird soundbite things. But I think that's my biggest guess, is that there's just going to be nothing of substance there, which is unfortunate because I see the benefit of a debate, of like seeing two competing visions of a country, and I think we need to do this, and you're too weak on that, and like we're gonna get like kind of tangentially that, but I think that's my prediction. What do you think?
Well, that's what we used to have. Like if you remember back to the big example that was always given was the Abraham Lincoln Stephen Douglas debates that were like 6 hours.
Yeah,
Um, back in the what 50s or 1850s or 60s, or I think was that when he was running for Senate, I think, or Congress maybe. I don't remember.
yeah,
But anyways, so they were doing Rogan style long form conversations or PBD style debates back then, and we got away from that, and it seemed like that's probably not a good thing that we got away from it. To the point about Rogan, I everyone says Rogan, and I was also on that train, but I think I would prefer PBD as he's. I've watched a couple. He's done a couple town halls and stuff recently, and he seems more
hmm
fitting for that format than Rogan does. There's kind of an air about him that like Rogan, I love Rogan, but it's like PBD seems to fit better for that. Anyways,
yeah.
that's neither here nor there. Um, yeah, the first question I was going to ask you after initial thoughts was, do you think we're going to have any substance? And I tend to agree with you because I don't know that like Trump seems to be like I can't like I don't understand him. I still don't understand him. And
No,
it's
I still
been
can't guess anything he's gonna
I
do.
I can't it's like he seems to know some things. Like he'll say some things that are like really good. Like when somebody asked him about funding Ukraine or whatever, he's just like, I want people to stop dying. And you're like, they gave you a binary answer of should we fund Ukraine, yes or no? And he
hmm
did not pick either binary. He said, I just want people to stop dying. And I was like,
Yeah,
wow, that's a great like, yes, I agree. Um, And then there's clips of like you've called women pigs. And he's like only Rosie O'Donnell, and it's like all right, that's hilarious. But also like, what are we doing here?
yeah,
Um,
right. Like it's
and so this format is going to be weird because obviously the moderators are going to be heavily leaning towards Biden, and so it's almost like we're going to end up with like a if there's two moderators plus Biden, it's like we're going to end up with a 1v2 because Biden's not really there. And so I don't really know. Like, there's not, what is there to, like, whatever they gave him for the State of the Union, like, you could clearly see it wear off. Like, by the end, he
yeah.
was back to, and so, I mean, whatever they're giving him, I would like some of it. Like, can I operate at
Can I get a little?
200% capacity
Yeah,
or whatever? But yeah, I don't see how long is it supposed to be? An hour and a half?
I think it's 90 minutes with two commercial breaks.
I just don't see how he can last that long because the State of the Union is he's reading off a teleprompter.
Yeah,
So this he's like you would think that he would have to think.
yeah.
So I don't see how he can last that long, to be
I mean,
honest.
there was the whole thing. Was it Trump Hillary that the Clinton campaign was being fed questions? But I mean, from a strategy perspective, let's play game theory perspective, not conspiracy theory
I mean,
perspective, but game theory.
that wouldn't surprise me at all. But the thing
Yeah,
is like with Trump, you can get fed all the questions you want, but then he'll like you remember when he had the people that accused Bill Clinton of sexual assault in the audience? Like
yeah,
you can have all the questions you want, but then he'll be like, "Oh yeah, look at all those people that accused your husband of what." Like you can't plan for that. So
yeah.
so yeah, you can have all the questions you want, but at some point there's still gonna have to be some thinking on his feet. And so like I don't
I
if I
actually wonder though. This will be interesting to me. This is my what I'll be tracking as I watch it is talking time,
Mhm.
right? Like the idea behind being able to cut mics and all
Yes.
that, like those kind
Yes,
of
yes,
things, was
yes.
that you would give equal time. I would be sort of shocked if it ends up being equal time.
Yeah.
right? I think you could play a clock game here and go, oh, okay, well, looks like we're out of time. But yeah, we're gonna go back and forth a couple times over here, and then we're gonna throw a softball over there, and
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna
we're
say they
moving
might
on.
like it might get cut early or ended early or somebody's mic might get cut. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Um, if I was Trump though, I wouldn't even spend any time on Biden. I would just say this is my plan and this is what I want to do. Like I wouldn't even spend any like I don't yeah, I wouldn't spend any time on him at all.
Yeah. Do you think he can do that? Does he have that self-restraint?
I
Or
don't
is this
know
get
that, but this is the thing, right? Like every so anecdote, I know some people that got married at like his one of his properties or whatever, and he happened to be there that day. And when they
okay?
met him, they were like, he was the nicest person ever, and he like took pictures with them. Like he doesn't have to do that. He's just walking through. Um,
Yeah.
and I keep hearing stories like that recently, or keep reading them. Um, some guy, I don't particularly like Logan Paul or what he does, but the other guy that was on the show, Mike, whatever his name is, I saw a tweet come across my thing that was like Trump, genuine guy, this and that, and it's like so in terms of the character flaws that like the version of Trump that we all see on TV, there has to be some like I can't imagine that he would have had the success that he has if he was only the version of him that we see on TV.
Hmm.
Now, with that said, we've only seen that version on TV. So does he have the self-restraint to not be that version of him on TV? I don't know. But I don't
Yeah.
think that that is the only version of him. Like I just feel like it's not that
It's a bit of a
I don't
character. Like it's a bit of a like he's putting on maybe even not a character, but he leans into certain things when on
yeah,
camera.
I feel like I feel like it has to be that way. Like how do you get anything done in terms of like deals and all these things, right? He's wrote a book about art of the deal or whatever, but like did you bully every single deal that you ever made in your life? Like
Right.
that doesn't seem I don't know. Maybe I'm naive. I don't know. I'm willing to admit that. But at some point, there's got to be a different side of him, right? Because all these, right, my friends that met him, they have no reason to lie to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I don't know.
I mean, I agree with you from a strategy angle. I think actually for both of them, that's the best move is actually
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
to go the character route. I don't know anybody who doesn't know how they feel about these guys and their character at this point. Is there anybody who doesn't know, like outside of not the question of who they're going to vote for, but like how they feel about this Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
Yeah.
I think everybody has a gut at this point, and so I
Mm.
don't think you're going to convince anybody
Hmm.
by attacking character at this point in the game.
No. The other thing that PBD said that I found very interesting was this is the first election in a long time where we've got 4 years of this guy versus 4 years of that guy.
Yeah.
And so that's another interesting component of that as well. Um, all right, let's go to the drinking game part. Let's go to the drinking game
Okay.
part because
Okay.
I don't want to belabor the point too much because like you said, this could turn into a WWE match. This could like they could get cut off early. Like making predictions almost like when I texted you that. I thought about it for 2 seconds and I was like, that's almost pointless because it really could do anything.
But wait, let's do one. Let's do one fun prediction.
Okay.
Black Swan event, yes or okay, wait. We'll do a couple like or that are normal.
Okay.
They shake hands at the beginning or not.
Yeah, because Trump loves to like shake hand, like pull you in type thing.
Yeah.
I feel like he'll try it at least. So I'll say yes.
Okay. Will they shake hands afterwards?
No, I feel like Biden will get like ushered off the stage because he won't know where
Okay.
he is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we got one yes, one no.
What do you
Yes at
think?
the beginning. I think you're right. I think they'll go. Yeah, I agree. I think I'd go yes, no. If I had to, it would be yes at the beginning, no at the end. No, you know what? I'm gonna go yes on both. I'm gonna go yes on both.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you either.
Okay. Talking time. 50-50 in the end. Like somebody will do the math. It's not going to be me. Some point, somebody on Reddit will post that they went through every clip. But is it going to be 50-50 or not?
Like, what's the margin of error on that?
20% either way. So between 60 and 40, we'll call 50-50.
Yeah, I think so. Well,
Okay.
I also think 60-40 is pretty wide.
55-45?
I think it'll probably be between 55 and 60 and 45 and 40.
Okay. Okay. I'll take the outside on it. I'll bet Trump talks more than 60% of the time.
That would be
I'll
good
take over
for
60.
that would be good for memes.
It's yeah, true. Okay. And then Black Swan events. So they shake hands. Trump knocks over Biden by accident or on purpose. I don't know. Somebody falls down. Let's put it that way.
Somebody
Anybody on
falls.
stage falls down. Odds that it happen, or yes, no, or odds, either way.
I'm gonna go. It probably won't happen, but I kind of hope it does.
It'll be
I
good
think,
TV.
yeah, I think probably not. I think probably not.
Okay. Black Swan. I need to come up with it's almost impossible to come up with a Black Swan Trump event, but Black Swan Biden event, he freezes up for like more than 10 seconds.
See, 10 seconds is you should start writing lines for Vegas.
Right.
Because
Right.
10 seconds is that's a I think he'll push it. I think it'll be like six, seven, eight.
Okay.
No,
How about
no, no. 10 is good. I'll take
yeah.
the under. I'll take the under.
Okay. And then along the same lines, sentence trails off and ends with anyways, I'm out of time or something like that.
100%.
Okay. Then we got to come up with at least one Trump one that like um
The easy one is saying like, does he say that he has the biggest or the best of something? I feel like that's an easy one
that's
though.
100 yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Odds that he
Uh,
says he won the 2020 election.
ooh. Or some version of that.
Some
Some
version of
version,
it.
yes. That it's brought up. Yeah,
It's
yeah. It will be brought up. Probably, if I had to guess, what'll happen is Biden will bring up that Trump is an election denier, and then
Mhm.
Trump will say like something along the line. It'll be some quip of like, "I'm not denying anything. I actually won."
Yeah. Okay. But yes, then
For
yeah, like
YouTube, I don't know what I believe, so
it's
I'm not saying anything.
yeah.
I think that is what will be said tomorrow night.
Okay. I like it. I like it. Those are some good predictions to put down. It'll be fun to we can
Okay,
text during it.
I want to come up with one more Trump one. Um,
Black Swan event. Um Wardrobe malfunction kind of thing?
nah.
No. He goes on a
How many zingers? How many zingers? Like because you'd be in jail. How many of
oh
those?
yeah,
Like more or less than three?
I'll go more.
Yeah, I think it'll be close. I in my head I was gonna say between three and five, but I felt like five was like pushing it, so I went with three. Yeah, I'll go with like three or less.
Yeah. What about uh he spends most of an answer on something sort of unrelated. Not like politician switch, not like you asked me about congressional funding, but what's really important is the Supreme Court. Like not that. I'm
Yeah,
talking about like the
completely
shark
unrelated.
story that's been going around of like nobody knows whether you should jump in the water with an electric boat and there's a shark over there. Do I get electrocuted or jump in the shark? Like I
Wait,
don't know if
what
you've
is
seen
this?
that.
No, no, no.
This is
What
a
is this?
this is a clip going around. I have no idea what the context is, but it's Trump. talking about how he asked, let me try to get this right. He's talking about how he asked some scientist when they were talking about electric vehicles if he was on a fully electric boat. So it had a really big battery and it was sinking, whether he should jump off the boat or not. And then if that changed, if there was a shark over there, like, should he stay and get electrocuted or should he jump in with the shark? Like, and this is like a solid 2.5 minutes of talking about this and how, like, at some point he goes, he told me nobody ever asked him that before. Like, this was a really good question. I was like, I agree that he probably said nobody ever asked him this before. Maybe not the second part.
It was the best question in the history of the world.
So yeah, most of an answer
Yeah,
on something like
I
that.
would say actually I'm gonna go with no for that one. I don't think he'll do it. I do have one other Trump one though. That he'll walk off. That he'll be like
Oh,
you're asking me unfair questions. Like he did, what was it, 60 minutes or whatever that he did that?
yeah, that is a good one. Oh, oh. I'm gonna go no, but I'm at like 55% no.
Yeah, I'm with
Like
you.
I really feel that's plausible.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Do you have the drinking game rules written down?
I don't have them written down,
Okay.
but we
We can we if you have them like off the top of your head, we list them off real quick and then we can jump over to something else.
okay. So all we came up with were phrases, right? That was kind of what we leaned into. So anytime Joe Biden says folks, or it's not a joke, or trails off, or if you're watching with somebody else, you have to look at them and go, what did he say? Those are the ones for him.
Or
For
come on,
Trump,
man.
or come on, yeah, that was the other one. Or come on, man. For Trump, it was China, the best something, uh, calls Joe Biden a name. There's,
Sleepy Joe.
um, yep, Sleepy Joe, Crooked Joe, whatever else he comes up with. Um, and then we were playing with whether there was going to be a superlative rule, but I think that would kill someone. So we
Yeah,
need a few more on that one.
that's a good start.
Oh yeah. Oh, people say that was it. Some people say that was yeah. You take a drink if he says some people say.
I will be doing that with water because I would like to not die. Um, that's good stuff. Okay. What else was on the list? AI. I'm trying to pull
Yeah.
it up. AI.
AI.
Let's do. I think we got enough time for. Yeah, let's do AI and see where that takes us for time, and then maybe we'll do the other thing at a later date or something.
Yeah.
All right. What are your thoughts on AI?
I mean, I think it's gonna be cool. I'm seeing a ton of push on the biotech space for trying to leverage AI. Um, Most of it seems sort of irrational. Like it seems like like I'm not sure AI is at the place where it needs to be to do a lot of stuff, but I have seen some cool ideas which were basically taking AI and letting it process medical record data like ChatGPT processes the internet
Mm-hmm.
and letting AI look for patterns that humans aren't seeing. So that I think is kind of a cool idea. Like I think that would be interesting to let AI, instead of feeding it text like you would ChatGPT, you feed it histology images or pathology images of ones that a pathologist has already scored, right? Like this person has cancer, this person doesn't. And there's like, I mean, millions upon millions of records like that you could feed into an algorithm that then theoretically could do it for you live, right? You would take a
Mm-hmm.
stain, you'd pop it into the AI, and it would tell you if that person has cancer or not, or if they have, some other disorder, or, maybe even stuff like if they have a specific mutation, if there's enough kind of characterization of it. So I do think that would be really, really cool.
Mm. Would you run into like HIPAA problems with like medical records and stuff, like the security piece?
Possibly. I mean, a lot of these things, the way you would do it now is you would have a protocol where you had to de-identify things.
Oh,
So
okay.
you would strip off names and birthdays and
Yeah, yeah.
that kind of stuff.
That's super interesting. The pattern recognition thing is something that I think would be just off the face of it would be super beneficial because there's lots of right the chronic disease stuff
Hmm.
that is going on and with the amount of processed stuff that's in food now, like AI would I think here's a pattern that I think would be right because it's so hard to control
Yeah.
what is causing a chronic disease, like where if somebody's eating something from birth, um, like how do you control for that? So like if AI was about to say the amount of people with chronic inflammation, um, and 95% of them had consumed this amount of blue 12 or whatever those dyes are that are
Hmm.
in the food, like stuff like that, I feel like um would be super beneficial because right now I've heard, I don't know if you've heard stories like this where somebody will say like they're gluten, like they're allergic to gluten in the US,
Yeah.
and then they'll go to Italy and they'll eat pasta and it's fine.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's stuff that's in our food that is not ideal, let's say, right? People hear the term forever chemicals and things of that nature.
Hmm.
Um, so I
I
think
know some
for
people who are like have a like allergic reaction to certain like food dyes. Or like if they have
yeah,
like if it has red food coloring in it, like they're allergic to the red food coloring,
hmm,
which is
well, they
odd.
shouldn't eat cake. So the
Yes,
icing.
yes.
Yeah. No, but it's super weird, right? Like how many I have this conversation so much because it's so hard to keep track of all this stuff. Like even me, like I read ingredients lists at the grocery store, so it takes
Hmm.
me much longer to buy food than it should. But that's a different story for a different day. Um, but I could not like so today I bought some tortillas. I could not find a tortilla that just had flour, starch, water, salts, and like whatever. Couldn't
Yeah,
find one. I looked through 8 or 10 different kinds.
yeah.
Everything had preservatives and chemicals and this and that. And it's like, I like tortillas. So, like, to completely cut all that stuff out, you're limiting what you can eat, obviously. But,
Hmm.
like, even outside of, and that's the other thing that's really disheartening. It's like, okay, I'm not eating Oreos anymore, so I'm good, right? It's like, no, it's in everything.
Yeah.
Um, a good rule of thumb for people listening is stuff on the outside of the grocery store, not the stuff in the middle. Um, but
Hmm.
yeah, so. So I think that would be good for AI, the nutrition piece and what diseases it's contributing to. I don't really know how you would control for that either with AI, but I think the patterns, like recognizing the patterns of this person ate whatever, like their diet
Yeah.
consisted of this, like, and so then they ended up with Crohn's or whatever.
Yeah.
Think that would be
Well,
cool.
and from a like detection perspective too, right?
Yes.
Like the interesting thing I've found about AI is that it can't always explain to you why the pattern's there.
Yes.
Like that's the thing that like I think it has the most potential for, right? Is not just noticing like tiny signals over a lot of noise, but tracking patterns that don't logically make sense to our brain, right? And it can't really explain why, the fact that everybody in this data set had a really long left toenail happens to correlate with IBD or something, right? Like it doesn't know why.
Hmm.
It just finds a pattern somewhere that we wouldn't look for because it doesn't make sense in our current understanding.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. The other piece of AI for me, not necessarily in the medical space, but so I use it right now to make my short form clips, and generally it's pretty good. Gets captions right. I put one up today that I missed a typo in the caption. Like it does a good job of transcribing words to text and then editing the video and all that stuff. Um, but and then Chat GPT obviously is very useful as well. So I don't really know like you mentioned deepfakes earlier. And I had a guy on, Phil Howard, who works in the space. I To be honest, I don't really have that many thoughts about it. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, it's here. This is what it provides for me right now. Um, People to, oh, AI is going to kill us all. It's like, well, if it does, what's the use in worrying about it right now? I'm still here and it's not killing me right now. So you can go take your worries elsewhere. Because I don't know. So I don't really have that many thoughts on it, I guess.
Yeah. I think some interesting it'll open up some interesting opportunities in terms of, like you said, big data stuff. Deep fake stuff has an interesting angle for movies and for media going forward. Um, but I'm with you. I don't think there's any way of like stopping it. Now, I do think at the moment it's not exactly where people want it to be. Like I think a lot of times it's sort of just a big data aggregator, which is cool, but it's not truly intelligent, right? The fact that it can't explain why a pattern's there,
Yeah.
it would be part of an intelligence. But I do, it keeps getting faster and it keeps getting faster and faster. Like as it grows, it's been, we've gone from Chat GPT to Dolly. Like Dolly was cool.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that, the image generator one where you put in prompts and it draws stuff for you in like
Yeah.
different. So like that's pretty cool for all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it does
so
it on the B-roll for the short clips. Like and it'll take, I don't have to put in the prompt. It'll make its own prompt from the video, audio,
oh, cool.
and then it'll create it for you. Some of them are not great. Like the sports ones aren't great. Like it doesn't understand what soccer is. Like it had
Hmm.
three half field lines with circles and like five players, and one of them was like not there. Like it doesn't understand sports. At
Uh-huh.
least at least the one on this one, on this platform that I'm using. But yeah, it puts in its own prompts from the audio from the video.
Oh man. That leads to an interesting idea of trying to make like a clip that would break it.
The
Like
soccer one broke it. It's like
the soccer, yeah.
it gave my soccer player like three legs
Yeah.
and four half field circles and like two goals stacked on top of each other. And it's like that's not a soccer field.
You were you tried really hard, but that's not quite right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think, I mean, I think it opens up really interesting opportunities for entrepreneurs, right? Like something that would require a video editor or, right? Like when I was writing my book, I was using Fiverr to like uh get some of the cartoons drawn by somebody, right? Like I'd
Hmm.
pay them to draw a cartoon and like we'd go back, I'd email this, they'd email me back, I'd give some comments. Now I could just do it on DALL-E,
Yeah.
right? And it'll pop out 15 versions of it. And then I can go, oh, I like this one best. Try to spin off this one.
Yeah. Speaking of your book, where can the people find it if they don't remember?
Amazon. It's
And the title?
what the heck is a clinical trial and where to find one.
Well,
But
there you
yeah,
go.
but it like I think so. It's for clever people. I think it's going to cover a whole bunch of technical ground for them that
Yes.
that you could use to your advantage,
It'll be a
and
great
everybody
time
else is.
saver.
Uh-huh.
Um, and the same thing happened during COVID. I think we're seeing a very big divide in the capabilities of the workforce in terms of COVID. You had a lot of people with a lot of free time, and a lot of people used it very well, and a lot of people did not. The same
Yep.
thing with AI. You're going to have a lot of people use it very well, and a lot of people not or not use it at all. And the divide is gonna you're gonna have some like the productivity of some people is just gonna go absolutely through the roof.
Yep.
And some companies is going to go absolutely through the roof, and then the ones that don't adapt are going to be left behind. But it's going to happen so much faster than like in previous industry shifts, like
Hmm.
Kodak cameras, for instance, like Xerox doesn't exist anymore. Like some of these
Yep.
companies that were left behind with the technology changes, but that happened over the course of 20 years or whatever, 15, 20
Hmm.
years. And now I feel like you're going to have companies getting left behind in 2, 3, 4 years,
Yep.
if that. I had a guy, Paul. He's a HR consultant now, but he was talking about how previously it used to be like, oh, what company do you work for? What job do you have? But now it's the industry because the companies are coming and going so quickly that people hop from company to company within the industry. It's like the industry is more
Yeah.
important than the company that you work for. Because people, well, to your point about AI, people can use AI to set up like HR portals and human resources and like the employee handbook and the legal stuff. Like
Hmm.
write me a legal business documents, chat GPT, and like some of the need for like the lawyers and some of the like it's you can do it so much, you can get a startup going so much quicker now that it's the
Yeah.
industry that's more important. And then as soon as they're left behind, it's like, okay, well, moving on to the next one. Here's a new startup that pops up. Like,
Yeah.
so it's going to be
Yeah.
very
No, I
interesting.
think it's going to be very, I mean, think about how much stuff you could do if you didn't have to write the first draft,
Yeah.
right? If you could just move right to the editing phase, you could be so productive. And a lot of that stuff, like you said, especially on the lawyer side of things, is I mean, LegalZoom kind of went after this for a while, right? Of that
Hmm.
like that website where you could kind of do basic stuff. But a lot of people's like legal needs are pretty cookie cutter,
Yes.
right? Like I want a trust, I want a will, I want right like that. I'm sure that could be tackled by AI with a lawyer who then just reviews it and goes, "Oh yeah, no, you can't do that, you can't use that." But like it'll just get better and better.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes straight to the editing portion and then you're off from there.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's going to be exciting. Rogan always talks about when we'll have the first AI president. It's like, oh boy.
President AI.
Yeah. It's not a good look for I don't even know. That'll be super wacky. Um,
Pretty sure that was a Fallout plot line at some point.
it might have been. It might have been. Hmm. Looking at the time, I feel like if we go into the other conversation that we were gonna have, that will go down a rabbit hole that will last for forever. Um,
A waveform shaped rabbit hole.
yeah, waveform shaped rabbit hole, that's for sure. Yeah, let's wrap it up here. I think this is a good spot to wrap up. Any last nickels before we get you out of here?
No, thanks for having me. Always a blast.
Yeah.
Oh, I
All
got the
right, guys.
question though. I got the
No, wait,
question.
no.
Oh,
They
that's
don't they
off
don't get
off.
to know. Off
That's right.
camera.
That's
They
right.
don't get to know. Yeah,
Zipping it.
yeah. Yeah. What an outro. Completely smooth, no issues. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.